You're listening to the Walled Garden Podcast. This podcast is a part of the Walled Garden online community, a community dedicated to sharing and discussing philosophy, beliefs, ideas, and creativity among all types of people, in order to gain new insight on some of life's biggest questions and make the most of how we live. We appreciate you joining us.
So welcome everybody to our second official inspiration session. Now, a few, what's the right word here? Is it apologies, or when people can't make it to the meeting? I don't know. We'll just say, as is usually the case in California, it's become quite biblical over there, apparently, with storms and rain and all sorts of things. And so Sharon, unfortunately, is in the pits of hell at the moment, trying to figure out some things and some internet issues. And so she couldn't make it today, unfortunately, but nonetheless, she will hopefully be back for next week. And it's actually a blessing in disguise, because what we have today is Jake. He's going to be sharing his own wisdom and his own vision for the Walled Garden. Now, I really wanted to just quickly take a moment, and I thought it would be good for us to have a little bit of a celebration and a welcome ceremony, you might say, to our first few members on the Walled Garden, because it is really exciting for us to kind of all sit back here and see as people start to come into our community, and we want to welcome them as well. So I just want to say hello to Dale, Hans, Michael, Scott, Michael. We have three Michaels, Anna and John and another Michael, all of whom have joined up. There is another person, but I didn't actually know this was possible, but they only put their email in and not their name. So I'll have to check that on that. I also want to make a special thanks to Hans, who decided to put a nickname as Agapanthus, which is apparently maybe his favorite flower. And so seeing as he's joining the Walled Garden, he made his nickname a flower. I thought that was pretty cool. But our first 9 members, and I'm really excited about this, and I'm excited to see that people are coming on board and getting involved in what we're doing here. So thank you to all those members who have joined up with us. And I just want to let everybody know at home that if you do want to become one of the first 100 members, then there is that discount, Practical Stoic. If you put that in, you can join the caretaker membership and get a discount off that. But anyway, apart from all that, I'm just really excited to hear from Jake today, because I guess when the idea first came to me, to ask Jake, hey, would you like to come on board and help us out with the Walled Garden project? It was one of those moments where the idea comes and immediately the answer comes as well, which is yes, this is the right thing. And I've been really trying to really understand when I have those moments of feeling like I'm in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing with the right mindset, because that's virtue. And you can learn to feel that feeling when you get it, and that intuitive yes, and so when I thought about Jake, and we were just about to have a conversation to catch up after a while, and I thought, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to ask Jake, because I think he would be an invaluable asset to what we're doing here, and he's a great person. High integrity, a great life story, lots of wisdom. And so the answer was clear to me, and I asked him, and apparently the answer was clear to him as well, and he gladly accepted. So I'm really honored to have you along, Jake, and I guess I'm just looking forward to hearing from you today. So I'm going to throw it over to you and say thank you very much for sharing what your wisdom for today, and I'll let you start.
I'm incredibly grateful just to be a part of this. When you reached out, I can't remember if it was you that reached out or if it was me that reached out just to say, hey, we got to catch up. It's been a good 4 months or so, and then you sprung this on me. I was thrilled, and it kind of felt like it was meant to be, because I'm in a very transitional period of my life where I'm thinking about all the types of things that we discuss here in the Walled Garden, and I guess I debate back and forth whether or not to offer this disclaimer. I offered this disclaimer in the original episode where I just introduced myself, that, we have Kai, who is brilliant. We have Sharon, who is a brilliant author and artist. We have Simon, who's been podcasting for a long time. And then we have me, who's been navigating the turbulent waters of life in a large variety of ways for some time. But I will, if I trust in anybody, it's Simon Drew. And so if Simon thinks I should be here, then that means I do have something to contribute. And I hope that I can help out in ways that are meaningful to people. Right.
And I'm honored. Thank you. And I'm also very good at springing things on people. that seems to be one of my
your best qualities.
Yes.
And it always works. So persuasion too, I guess. Cool. So I after Simon's contribution last week, he shared his epistle with us. I have never written an epistle, to be entirely honest. And I thought, man, how do I follow this absolute beauty that Simon just shared with us? And the thought that came to me was, I think I ought to just share a little bit about who I am, kind of what journey I've been on in life, where I am at in my journey, and then what types of thoughts and ideas and feelings I have toward, this thing we call life at this moment in time, and how I can contribute to the walled garden in the ways that, play best to my knowledge and my experience. I am going to share my screen real quick so that you guys can see a couple things. Are you seeing a picture of me and my dog?
Sure can.
Okay. Okay, so there I am. This is me. I'm Jake Bush, and that is my dog, Charlie. He's my one loyal companion here that I live with in Provo, Utah. So just a bit of background on me. I was raised in rural Idaho. There's probably not a lot of listeners who have been to rural Idaho, but I usually tell people everything you imagine about it when it comes to potatoes and fields. And if you've seen the film Napoleon Dynamite, it's fairly accurate. You have a pretty good picture in your mind. But the truth is, I loved growing up in Idaho because I was surrounded by beautiful nature, right? I lived in the farmlands in the Snake River Basin, but also within a 30-minute drive or an hour drive, we were just surrounded by all the beauty of the Rocky Mountains and the American West. I'll scroll through a few different pictures here, actually. So there we go. So this is a picture taken either on the border of a place called Island Park or Yellowstone, which is right close by to where I grew up. And so I have fond memories of camping with family and backpacking through country like this. That is another photo taken about an hour from my house. I believe that is the Snake River, or at least it's a tributary of the Snake River, which was directly across from the house that I grew up in. And so at any point I could walk across the street, go sit down by the river and watch the water go by and think about life's questions, a little bit different than the way I do it now, because back then it was as an angsty teenager worried about whether my band was going to succeed or whether this girl liked me. But I would also mix in, the questions of God and the questions of the universe and the questions of what kind of life do I want to live, and being surrounded by all that beauty really played a part in that. Last one here. These are the Grand Tetons, right? They're fairly famous in Wyoming, close to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And that was also a common place that I would jump over to on weekends and just kind of hike around and experience all the beautiful pine trees and rivers and lakes and all the fun culture that they have there, right? So the reason I share this is just to kind of preface this with the fact that nature has always been really important to me. And I would say that the outdoors and nature have kind of been my sanctuary, right? One thing that I loved when Simon brought up this idea to me of the walled garden, he said, yeah, like it's metaphorical. We're going to have the idea of, we're planting seeds in this walled garden to grow different flowers of different ideas and find a place of peace where we can sow those seeds and let them flourish. That he knew how to catch me with that, because I love all that kind of stuff, right? Now going to kind of my background philosophically. So like 95% of people who were born in rural Idaho, I was raised in the Mormon faith. It was a very tight-knit community, and there were a lot of wonderful things about it. It's a very, very look out for one another type community. I knew every single person within a 3-mile radius of my home, every family and all their kids and what they were all up to, because we spent time together at the local chapel, sometimes 3 times a week, doing activities and then having church services and all that kind of stuff. And also a very common thing for a young Mormon boy to do is to go on a mission. And I did that as well. When I turned 19, I went out and I lived in Argentina for about 6 weeks. And that was just to learn Spanish and kind of get my feet wet in the culture. And then they shipped me off to Uruguay, where I was living in Montevideo, the capital, for a good chunk of time. But I also spent a pretty significant time on the Brazilian border and in really small towns, probably better described as villages or communities out in the middle of nowhere in Uruguay, where there was poverty. There was not extreme poverty like other places in the world, but it did help me recognize how fortunate I was growing up in the community that I did, because we spoke every day with people who were not just struggling with life's big questions, but struggling with life's basic questions like, what am I going to eat tomorrow, And so that was really eye-opening to me, just kind of getting a broader view on the human family. Now, when I was about 25, I started reading a lot. I started reading voraciously. And it's because, I had always enjoyed learning Mormon theology, Mormon doctrine. I read every book I could get my hands on, and I found it insightful. I found it inspiring. And then I started reading books that were sort of outside the sphere of the Mormon theology. And I started running into things that also hit me really deeply and made me think, that makes a lot of sense. And that contradicts the other thing I learned, right? Or running into situations where I saw, people or behaviors that, someone who just wasn't the type of person that would thrive in kind of the Mormon faith, feeling like they were less than, or feeling like they were a bad person just because they felt differently and they didn't feel like they were a right fit for that type of spiritual path, and that was a little bit confusing and conflicting to me. And long story short, I have a lot of love for the Mormon faith, and all my family are still very much participating, and I participate in different events from time to time, but I have separated myself sort of from the direct, I guess what you would call adherence to, yes, I believe every tenet of this. I believe that it's, the one true path. I now believe that one true path is sort of a tricky thing to try and nail down, because people are also different, and there are so many paths that I think everyone's journey is going to look a little bit different. But the reality is that that's all valid. We're all on different paths that are worthy of respect and dignity. So that kind of sets the stage for where I'm at right now. If someone were to ask me spiritually or philosophically, where are you at? I would say, well, I've dabbled with Stoicism. I've read a lot of books about Buddhism. There have been some moments that I have identified as an atheist, simply just because I don't really have a clear belief in what God might be at this point. But another thing that has really stuck out to me is essentially the idea of humanism. And, I'm not an expert on the topic, but my experience traveling the world, just because, as a quick mention, I also, in my early 20s, I lived in China for about a year, and I bummed around on freight trains and slept in McDonald's booths and, walked through the rice fields and stuff on kind of soul-searching journeys, just jotting stuff down on my notebooks and taking photos. My experience in seeing people who are so different, who believe such different things, and that there are happy people and that there are sad people everywhere. There are good people and there are people who are sometimes unkind everywhere. You find that in every faith, in every culture, all around the world, right? It's really driven home the point to me that we are one human family, right? I want to read a quote here. And it's a quote that sort of describes the main idea behind humanism, right? So the core elements of humanistic thought are education, reason, individualism, and a strong belief in the universal human nature. The reason that has stuck out to me is because I have seen so much good carried out by so many people in my life. And I, in my past, in my Mormon upbringing, there was sometimes a belief that, if something good happens to you, it's because God has blessed you with that. Something bad happens to you, that's because God has, given you a challenge to overcome. And I have grown to the point that I'm like, I believe that human beings have the capacity for good, and they have the capacity to do really harmful things. But that human beings are free agents that can kind of choose their own path and really make massive differences in the world. And that it isn't necessarily entirely attributed to a deity if anything is accomplished by humanity. Right now, let me back up a little bit. I now am at the point that I do believe in some concept of transcendence, right? The humanity is being assisted by something bigger than us, and you can call it, the universe. You can call it God. You can call it whatever you like. And for me, what I've kind of grown to call that is this force of nature, right? This beautiful world that we live in, and this mind-blowing universe that we live in. And the fact that these complex systems all function in certain ways is just so beautiful to me and so powerful to me. And that is what I derive my inspiration from. So to me, that's what I would say is my closest thing to my belief in God, right? Everything that I see around me that is much bigger, much more powerful, much more, sophisticated and simple than I as one human being am, right? So I've rambled a little bit here, but that's kind of a background on just where I am philosophically at the moment, right? And I think it's going to be a lot of fun being a part of this group, because I know that we have people from all different faiths and all different belief systems. And if anybody ever wants to debate me on anything I've said, I'm completely open to that. And an important belief to me is that I'm always ready to change my mind if someone makes a compelling argument that is a more compelling than the arguments that I have made in my own mind, right? But when it comes to what I want to contribute to the walled garden, I would say that is a large part of it, that I want to bring different types of people into conversations where we all have different beliefs, we all have different backgrounds, we all have different experiences, we all have different politics, which is a touchy one these days. And yet we're able to identify that we are all human beings. And that means that every single one of us has something in common, right? That's a bit of a good segue into my next bit here, which is that growing up, there were kind of certain expectations placed upon me by my community and my culture, and I think just society in general, which are go to college, get an education, get a degree, find a career, get married, have kids. There's kind of a template that is sort of accepted as that's what you're supposed to kind of be doing in your life. And I did, when I was younger, I wanted to be a musician, actually. I wanted to be a musician and a writer, writing stories and playing songs, and sometimes doing them both kind of together, because I love the audio format as well. And the idea of writing short stories and then composing music over the narration is actually something that I'm interested in exploring and posting on the walled garden, perhaps. But I went to school and I got a degree. That degree was actually in Spanish translation, because I essentially wanted to get out of college as quickly as I could, because I found a lot of the college classroom settings, something wasn't highly interesting to me. I struggled with it. I'd rather be in a library studying the things that I found important in that moment, and I was able to kind of go through a Spanish translation degree fairly quickly because of my experience living in Latin America for multiple years. And then I got into the tech industry. Now, the tech industry is fascinating, and I think we would all agree that technology is amazing. It is mind-blowing what has been achieved, and whether it's been achieved by the brilliance of humans or by divine intervention, either way, it's incredible. And at the same time, going back to the idea that nature, to me, is kind of emblematic of the most amazing thing of all. I have seen in my 5 or so years working in tech, both kind of in small startup type situations and also big tech, working regularly with the heavy hitters that you hear about on CNN all the time. Technology is a force, right? It's a force that can be channeled for good, and it's a force that can do insane amounts of damage. And one of those damaging things that I observed was that for a long time, I got very sucked into, I have to excel at this. I have to be the best. I have to be a part of this growing technology and innovating and all of that. And there were times, especially during the beginning of the pandemic, that I would work 60 or 70-hour weeks. I would stay up all night working, and then I would work entirely through the next day. And then, I would receive promotions and I would climb the ladder, and like on the inside, I was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm doing well at it. Why do I feel a little bit empty inside? And I think the reason why is that we have not achieved, as a human family, complete harmony between technology and nature, right? There are ways in which they harmonize, but there are a lot of ways in which they don't. And one of the biggest things that I've observed nowadays, when we look at how the world is sort of polarizing, right? Whether it's religion, you have atheists, and you have the religious, and sometimes you have these religious people and those religious people who look at each other like they're all opponents, right? And it seems like those gaps are widening and widening. A big reason for that phenomenon, I have become fairly convinced, and I know it's not the only reason, but I think it's a major factor, is that technology has figured out that we can learn enough about people and what their likes, dislikes, beliefs, their communities are like, that when it comes to things like social media or Google or Facebook or Instagram or whatever it might be, we can spoon feed these people exactly what they want to hear to confirm exactly what they think to be true, so that they will come back for more and more and more, with the end result of a whole lot of ad revenue, right? And to me, the walled garden, I told Simon this the other day, because I am working kind of behind the scenes on a lot of stuff with some technical expertise in different areas. I said, I will not touch an algorithm. We will never touch an algorithm that tries to cater content to a person based on data that they didn't ever tell us they wanted us to collect, right? And I also will never collect data from anyone, unless it's, what's your name, because you're coming to my meeting, and I think that's crucially important, because we as human beings, as a human family, if we want to find unity and we want to find peace and we want to find tranquility, it's important that we expose ourselves to situations in which we are harmonizing and conversing with people who hold different beliefs than us, who feel differently. And I think debate, healthy debate, is a very virtuous thing. Whereas in today's world, sometimes it seems like debate and fight are synonyms when really they are not, right? A debate is, here are the ideas I bring, here are the ideas you bring, let's mix them all together and argue each point. And at the end of the debate, one of us might be convinced differently, the other might be convinced differently, maybe neither of us are convinced differently, that's okay, but we shake hands on it and we both walk away a little bit more educated on the other person's side of things. And that instills respect for each other, right? So as a person who believes strongly that, you know, we are all part of one human family, we are all on the same journey, which is live on this rock for a certain amount of years, try to do good wherever we can, and then we'll leave this realm and maybe go on to another one. I haven't figured that out yet, or maybe we won't. I hope we do. But to me, the walled garden is a place where we can invite people in to plant seeds that they are the experts in planting, right? One person might be an expert in planting sunflowers. One person might be an expert in planting, you know, lilacs. And that can be kind of metaphorical of like, I like to plant ideas of the goodness that exists in human nature, right? I like to plant seeds about the beauty and the wonder that we can find in the mountains and in the prairies and in the fields. Another person could bring in and plant a seed that is based in the beauty that we can find in the Bible or the beauty that we can find in the Quran. And as a human family, we can all water these seeds and watch them grow and learn from each other as we do that, right? How am I on time? How long have I been talking? I lose track, I'll be honest. 20 minutes?
Great. Take as long as you need. Take as long as you need.
I'll get to kind of my last points here. So to get a little bit less all over the place and a little bit more down to the actual topic at hand, which is what do I hope to contribute to the walled garden? First, I hope to contribute to it being a growing community of diverse people, right? And doing that in ethical ways, not in ways where we're, you know, pulling off all kinds of marketing shenanigans. I'm not interested in that at all. I want to do this in a way where we find the people that are interested in being a part of something enriching and enlightening and important for them in their lives. So that's one part of it. You know, I'll be helping out with the technical side of things, and so you'll hear my voice on intros and outros and different things. But then Simon has also been very trusting and very kind and said, hey, Jake, you know, you dabble in music. You know, I've got my guitars on the wall. I've got my piano here. I've got my recording set up. I also love writing stories. I also love reading stories and then discussing with people what those stories can teach us. And so I hope to contribute to the walled garden in both a you know, kind of behind the scenes technical way, but as much as I can also in a spiritual or philosophical or enlightening way, where I can help people come together, see ourselves as one human family, and find enlightenment through art and music and ideas and sharing the diversity that we all bring to the table. Let me glance over my my notes here real quick, see if I've left out anything super important. Oh, so yeah, last thought here. When I mentioned that, you know, I come from the background of working in tech, and that I've done very well in it, fortunately, and I realized that that's a great, it's, you know, it's a great blessing to have been able to work in that and learn a lot of skills and you know, be able to do things like buy guitars and hang them on my wall. I have also struggled with, you know, receiving promotions and still going home feeling like I don't feel transcended by this. You know, I don't feel like this is exactly what I'm meant to be doing. And one of the most important books I've ever read is by Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. It completely changed my perspective on things. And the reason why is because, you know, everyone in this world, whether they know it or not, we're all looking for happiness, right? Some people are looking for it in great places, through religious communities, religious belief, through charity work, through reading and learning and enriching their lives. Some people are looking through it in ways that are less likely to pay off, like just accumulating wealth and accumulating power. And, they often end up feeling that emptiness inside when more zeros at the end of your bank account doesn't actually result in more tranquility in your mind. It oftentimes results in more stress. But I think that what Viktor Frankl, the argument that he made, is the most compelling argument I've ever found for, how to find happiness in life. And to summarize, I would recommend that everyone go read his book. He was a Holocaust survivor, and his story is absolutely incredible in terms of the human spirit and human will. And he talked about how he was writing a book on psychology when he got sent to the concentration camp. And the first thing that happened when he got there was they took it and they shredded it and tossed it aside, as sort of a way of dehumanizing him and saying, no, you're not a writer. You're not a psychologist. You are a prisoner now. And that was just soul crushing. But he also made the point that something that kept him going through challenges and suffering that I cannot even imagine was the idea, I have to rewrite that book that they shredded. Those were good ideas I had. And he would sneak, tiny scraps of paper to jot down things so he wouldn't forget them. He would spend time like writing the book in his head and all those things. And afterward, he wrote this book, Man's Search for Meaning. And he made the argument that what a person needs in life to find happiness is a purpose. And I think the idea of finding your purpose is kind of a loaded thing to a lot of people. It's like, go find your purpose. And people think like, oh, what, they equate it with like my destiny or some grand thing of like, I have to discover through God or through hours and hours and hours of meditation what my purpose is. And there's only one purpose in this world for me. And it's a needle in a haystack and I have to go find it. When in reality, purpose could be, I need to finish that book that I wanted to write. Or my purpose is my dog relies on me and I have to feed him every day, or my purpose is I'd really like to release, a compilation of short stories before my time is up. Or my purpose is I want to help people by volunteering at this and that charity wherever I can. Hopefully the walled garden can also inspire people and bring people into an environment where they can discover not just their purpose, as if every person only has one purpose that they can possibly find fulfillment in, but that they can be exposed to enough ideas and enough paths and enough ways of living that they can find a purpose to pursue and find fulfillment and joy in that. And I think that's it. So I'll stop there because I have this tendency to monologue endlessly, and I don't want to do that to you today because there will be other opportunities, I'm sure.
Listen, I think, Jake, that everyone in the walled garden so far, probably bar Sharon, I'd say, has that ability to monologue. So we're on board with that, man. But thank you so much for sharing that wisdom with us and your own contribution. And everybody who's listening will now know full well, why I chose you to come on board and work with us.
Thanks for listening to the Walled Garden Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd invite you to subscribe so you don't miss out on new episodes posted weekly. If you are interested in gaining access to a wide range of additional content and participating directly in our discussions, visit us at thewalledgarden.com to see what different membership options have to offer. Thanks again, and we hope to have you back.